Alright, so this video covers business and in specific, consignment. So I thought it would be beneficial to have a series of videos based upon business and cover the different businesses that I attend and how they work. Something that I wish somebody had done a long time ago would be break down how to basically take your hobby and, make it so you don't have to pay any money on your hobby, right? That'd be awesome. So I'm going to kind of break down to the different forms of businesses that I run in order to sustain my hobby so I can just have new creativity, innovation appear within my pieces and not, totally burn any income that I need. Anybody that's looking for income as far as like monthly income, they might want to watch this video too. Instead of like, supporting new hobbies, you could potentially just use that money to extra $400 or $500 a month. It really does add up when it comes down to it. So I'll show you what businesses I conduct in, and they are in markets that nobody can ever saturate. Okay. All right. So finding your area. Okay. Here's a couple tips. So what you're looking for is basically an art community in your area. In your area or the area that you are trying to break into. Take any town, okay? And what you're looking for is a local artist community. You'll know this, you'll find it. You can take classes in art, you can take classes in pottery, you can take classes in oil painting, anything, okay, through this community. These little areas, these little niches, schools pop up in certain places, and around this area is usually a hub of sales. Somebody opens up a studio, but I don't want to call it a studio because the word studio kind of breeds either a museum or hoity-toity. So you want to stay away from those things. Museum is basically nobody goes into this place because they're afraid to drag their kids in. Okay, that's museum. And then the hoity-toity version is nobody can afford anything in the store. They basically go in there once a year for a gift and they buy a keychain. So you don't want that either. When you walk into this place, you'll know the energy of it. You'll want to spend some money, or you'll want the goods they sell. There's going to be so much; it's almost a mind overload. And these do pop up a lot. They are called consignments, but the artists in that area don't call them consignments either. And I know that's being very vague, but it's usually a studio of consignment work. But just know that the word studio and the word consignment are kind of old hat, where they don't always label them that way anymore. So long story short, find your artist community in the area that you want to break into, and then find the leader and organization of that movement. And once you find that person, ask them, do you have a store filled with all this stuff? Is there a studio in the area that is housing that? Then go into that studio or that consignment place and get a feel for it. Does it have the two ones you want to stay away from? Does it have the hoity-toity feel, or does it have the museum feel, or does it have the wow, there's some amazing things here feel? If you don't feel a need to buy things there, neither does a lot of other people. So that's kind of my general rule of thumb. And the price points. There's another way to do it. So when you kind of look around, look at if there's a price point between $10 and like $1,000. If there's a variation of price points between those two marks, you are in the right place. There's another easier way to kind of feel it out if you just can't feel out buildings and people and stuff like that, if you don't have that superpower. All right, next thing is ask questions before you actually share what you do. So don't drag your goods into the store day one Always make sure that you are doing a recon mission. You go into the place, you ask some questions, you're like, wow, these are sweet. Are these local artists? And when they're going to say, well, no, not all of them are local, that's another good indication right there. When they say that, that means they're open to people outside their area, which is always good. Some of these communities are very niche markets where they only like people for people in Detroit, and say they won't take any artists outside of Detroit. So they might be interested in other markets or other artists that are outside the local market. So ask questions like that, who are all of these artists? Are these different artists? Are they all local? And look at the price points between the artists' work. Kind of see some are selling prints at maybe $5, and then they have pieces for like $1,000, but they're willing to sell the $5 print, not the $1,000 painting. Okay, that draws people into the shop. People can't afford $1,000 painting, but they can buy a gift for a $5 print. So this is going to draw a lot of people into this place, and it's a good market to get into consignments. So what is a consignment? Well, a consignment is a store. Okay, the people that own the store do not buy the goods in the store. They look for people that are passionate individuals that make things, or they look for things that other people want to sell to bring to their store. So there's a couple different versions of consignment, and you can use the model of consignment very easy in yard sales, eBay, anything like that. You have very little overhead as far as a store is concerned. In other words, the person that owns the store didn't have to go and buy the item and then wait for it to sell. In this case, you have an item you want to sell, they have a store. So you guys get together and say, well, since you have the item and I have the store, let's team up and get that item sold, and I will charge you for selling the item. Just like that. That way, I kind of own a store, but I don't own a store. I don't have to worry about the electrical bill. I don't have to worry about insurance on the employees. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I have no idea how to run a store. I would utterly fail at it. Probably it would take me like 3 or 4 years to get my feet wet in it. These people have been in it for decades, and they like owning stores. They like showing up every day for work as far as, the sales are concerned. For me, I want to be a totally passionate artist that is just making cool things. Okay? So there's two different things going on here. Why not team up and have somebody that likes owning a store sell your work? And that's what consignment is. All right, next, start taking pictures of your work based upon tear sheets. Okay? And series. So, for example, I'll click on one of these. This is a series I did. They all kind of look the same, but they're a little bit different. They all have a very plain background. They're very easy to look at. They might have a logo in the back, and that's about it. Next series. Next series. Okay? If you want to do business with consignments, you'll have to have some kind of idea for them to look at to see what they envision that stuff to look at like in their store. So you could email them before you drag your goods in. Okay, that's very important. You don't want to corner anybody. Let's say I drag my suitcase of goods into the store. It's a Friday. They're busy. I'd be like, hey, I have these rings. Would you be interested in consignment? No, don't do that. Prep them. Email them ahead of time. Tell them what you do. Give them examples via tear sheet. Link them to your Instagram account. But, give them an idea what it all looks like. And they're very interested in a high and low price point. You can't do, $80 $80 little rings over and over again. Nobody can afford that. You're going to have to come full circle at one point that you are going to make more money by having a variable price point, especially with these places and anywhere in general. I mean, I sell things very quickly because I can get people like their kids, you know what I mean? Their kids are going to buy something at one of my event, and because it's like $5 to $10, and guess what? That kid's going to drag the parent in religiously every year to the same event, and every year I see the same families show up, and every year they spend more and more money. I know this because my kids do the same thing to me. Like, just watch the little ones. And sometimes I'll just give away, crystal necklace to kids, just out of giving. It's just, I know it's going to be like every year that kid is going to look for the free necklace or the, like just the opportunity to go back to that one place and et cetera and so forth and drag the parents in. It's awesome. But be in that state of mind where you're going to have a variable price point on your work. You can have pieces like these that are relatively more expensive, but also you're going to have to develop things that are not expensive, especially when you're doing consignment. All right, the next thing is you have to think about building your own display, really, when it comes down to it. So the place really is good at displaying your artwork, but they display it all the same way. Usually it's in a glass case, and usually it's in a manner that is really hard to get into or get to as far as a customer is concerned. Been to a few of those places. That's why I started developing these small suitcases or some small case at all. So think about a display case, okay? Think about being able to take a very small display out of the display case and laying it out on the counter and having the customer try on a bunch of things all at once. And then the store owner can put back the case, okay, when they're done, and think that manner of display. So small cigar box, very small suitcase. You can drag that out. Like, these are the bigger ones, right? But I have really small ones. I'll go to different antique shops and look for different types of suitcases, but I find these really, really, really small suitcases, and I snatch those things up every time. And what I'll do is I'll build very small micro displays, and the micro displays are very easy for consignment places to take, put on the countertop. It'll have like 4 or 5 pair of earrings, maybe a necklace here, and some rings, okay? And then the store owner can put that back. But what you want to do is provide pictures of the display that you have, and then offer that and be like, hey, you know what? I can even grant you a display. They look like this, and then you can give them a picture. Okay, so display building's huge. You're going to end up doing it anyway if you're going to do art fairs, which is probably a different video altogether that I want to get into. But right now, I would say my businesses for consignments have always been steady, even in downturn economies, right? Like even right now, where art fairs are definitely not going to be popular for a couple. Probably next year is when you'll see those things become popular again, but definitely not right now. So consignments have definitely been a good source of income through winter months, summer months, downturn economy, whatever. Been doing it forever, and I love it. But for the long story short of this clip, start learning how to make your own displays and start thinking about compact displays. All right, so let's say you nailed it. You showed them a display, they're interested in your work, and then they want to talk about contract. All right, so here's some things you need to ask about the contract. Okay, first off, Do you have a contract? Okay. Do you have a contract? And what percentage split is on that contract? And they'll walk you through on how they split their goods. Usually it's sometimes a 40-60 split where you get 60, they get 40% of the sale. And that 40% pays for things like they pay for the employees, they pay for the store, they pay for a lot of things that house your goods. Okay, so they work for you. All right, they work for you. You're just paying your employees, and it's beautiful because you're paying your employees, but you have nothing to risk whatsoever. Unlike owning a real store, you might have some risk involved of insurance and all this crazy stuff, right? But in this case, you don't have to worry about any of that. So that's why this is such an awesome opportunity. So even a 40-60 split is really good, because if you owned a store, you would end up paying a lot more than that's for sure. So just with the electricity alone, okay? So what is the percentage? And where should you go on it? Well, again, another question you're going to ask is, what is the term of that contract? Okay? In some cases, you might want to just do it to learn from it. You might learn from this place and find out things like customer base. You might find what really sells, what you really need to focus on. And in that case, the R&D or research and development part of it might be worth taking a little bit of a loss sometimes, only for the learning opportunity that you're going to find a better one down the road. So make sure that this is a kind of a short-term marriage at first, just in case you don't like it. I would say every 4 to 6 months, something like that. 6 months would be good. A year might be a little long, but see if you can do it maybe for 6 months and see what they say about it. All right, the next thing you want to ask is, does this contract state that I cannot sell in this area? That's one that they really sneak in there. And let's say it was an area of a Renaissance festival. Okay, that area had a really nice Renaissance festival because it's an art town, right? They had a Renaissance festival, and this is something that you go to every year, and you make, maybe $2,400 at that Renaissance festival. Okay, that's some pretty good capital that you're taking out of the equation, because you're hooked up to that consignment in that area, sometimes they state that you cannot sell at that Renaissance festival. I've had 2 contracts that state that. Now, if there's nothing in that area that you ever attend, it's no big deal. Like, I don't sell near Detroit, so I don't really worry about the contract. Okay, so just make sure it has a range on it, and if you do sell in that area, I would not sign that contract. If it's if it's going to cost you a $2,400 revenue of sales to sign that contract, I would probably not do that. So ask them, does this limit me in any way to sell outside this place in this area? And sometimes they haven't even thought of that yet either. So I've had a couple places that they just haven't even asked that question yet. So here's the problem it runs into, is when you go selling at, let's say, that Renaissance fair, okay, you don't need to sell at the same percentage rate that you sell at the consignment. The consignment, you're going to have to up your prices just a little bit to match the percentage cost that you're going to sell at. So if it's a 40-60 split, right, you're going to probably up your cost about 30 to 40% to match the 40% that you're going to lose. That makes sense? So if it's a $10 thing, You might have to sell it at a $20 just to meet the percentage that you lost on the good. So you can up your prices to sell at the consignment. Be totally transparent that you are going to up your sales to match the percentage. Okay? Don't hide that. Make sure that you let them know day one that if you guys are doing a 40-60 split, that you're probably going to have to raise your prices by a percentage, and you can state it right there. Like, I'm going to state that everything I sell is going to have a 30% markup to be able to match that 40-60 split. And they're usually no big deal about that. And they don't care. Just as long as you're consistent with your prices, they don't care. So make sure that you are totally transparent with the individuals that run the consignment. Alright, so make sure that the place has an inventory system that you can get into. So when I need to know when to make a certain object or a thing, I know what to make. I know where to start buying goods. For example, I might have a certain crystal that I need to get ahead of time. You know what I mean? Like, I know when to start purchasing different things. Okay? I don't just buy them to buy them. I know when to buy them because I can start seeing my stock go down, and then I'm like, oh yeah, those are those amethyst crystals that I get from so and so. I get them wholesale. I better like go out and get some wholesale to replace that. All right, so having an inventory that you can see is very important for business. Most consignments have this, so please ask about it before you go signing up for that consignment. I can pretty much ship the goods to the consignment. They put them in the inventory, and then I can see the sales. And it depends on how robust their system is. Some people really break it down to, let's say, ring size, and then crystal, and then everything else. They have a description for every object. Just know if it gets too much, though, let's say it had a large amount of description for every object that you sell, that's a lot of paperwork on your half to do that. So I'm going to say, start thinking about your objects in tiers, okay? Like different tiers. Tier 7 would be, and you can put as many tiers as you want, but tier price groups will make it so you do not try to micro-organize and then get yourself into a situation where you're like, not only do I know that's ring size 5, but I know that's 5 size is black tourmaline. Okay, I sold a black tourmaline size 5. I have to replace that. Okay? That'll drive you nuts. Trust me. Better to just ship size 5 rings. And then there could be a tier group for those rings that basically state, well, here's a size 5 tier group 1, 2, 3. You can go like that. So I break it down to tier groups on rings, a tier group on necklaces, a tier group on earrings, and a tier group on bracelets. And I kind of cap myself off at that point. Then when I log into this, I could say, well, you know what, they're out of board necklaces, tier 7. I cap them off at like maybe a $75 necklace at this store, because that's their customer base. And do I replace that one? Or do I know that the economy is kind of weird right now where I might want to focus on my tier 1s and tier 2s? And how are they doing? You know what I mean? Like, so that it really gives you the ability to go in and say, well, you know, like, here's their board necklaces, they're out of stock. Sweet. That's where I need to go. Cool. So web interface, make sure they have that. Ask them if they have a web interface so that you give them things. You can see those things being sold. All right, let's say you sell things online, right? You're really into that. You get up in the morning, check your sales. Is there any? All of a sudden, you got 50 things that you got to package up. They got to be shipped to different places. The next day goes by, you didn't sell anything, and then all of a sudden you get in this routine where you have to kind of check your phone every day to see if you have sales. Okay? The energy that you're spending just doing all that you could have been more profitable in your shop just being creative and, like producing some things. At least that's what I found out. Like when I was managing an online store, I would have to go check to see if, where it's being shipped to, print out the little shipping label, package it up. Uh-oh, the customer didn't like it. Uh-oh, that means I have to go reship it back. And if you have ever sold things online before, you know what I'm talking about. It's always a waiting game to see if they really, really, really had the right size. They bought a ring online, and then it doesn't fit, and then they want either a refund or they want it resized, and sometimes you can't resize these things. So it gets into a many thing. Okay, consignment. Let's kind of match those things up. The customer goes to the consignment, okay? They try on the goods, right? They look at it then, they're happy with it, and they walk away. Okay, they had that sales experience right there. They got to see what they look like with it on. They got to have the opinion of somebody else maybe with them saying, wow, this looks great. If you try to blend the two worlds together, it becomes kind of a mess. And I slowly found out that I'm better off spending more energy looking for a consignment and only having 2 or 3 consignments rather than an online store and maybe a bunch of other places that I'm selling. Okay? So spend your energy wisely. Think about all the passion that you're passionate about and other people's passion, how they run it. They will gladly sell your goods. They're glad to have your stock in their store. They didn't have to buy your stock, so there's no overhead. They're happy, you're happy, and then you can maybe try to dissolve that online store, and you might be happier for it, in my humble opinion. I've been dissolving my online store, and I could tell you it's been a lot less headache for me, and I've been way more creative for it. All right, so that is consignment. Now, if you are still selling online, I will give you a little piece of advice when it comes down to like selling things online, selling things at art shows, and selling things in consignment. Okay. Sometimes, even though it is a pain in the butt to do something, you probably shouldn't just drop it off. You phase things out rather than just drop them off, because it might be relevant for you to understand the complexities of something at a certain level, and you might have to struggle just a little bit in certain areas, like an online store. Maybe it's good for you to struggle there just a little bit. Maybe you're not struggling at all right now, you know what I mean, and you're selling online, good. And maybe you struggle as the art shows are concerned. Sometimes it is good to struggle a little bit. You learn a lot more for it. You learn how to package your goods. You learn your customer base. You learn your price points. You learn what type of product you bring to certain areas. You learn a lot of things. And some of these things you don't even know you're learning. So don't just stop what you're doing and, do a certain thing that I'm talking about. Maybe it's relevant for you to kind of suffer a little bit, even though that's mean. But it might be really good for you to do that. So everything that you do, you're doing it perfect. You don't know. If you like this content, if you're really interested in electroforming or learning that stuff, I would highly suggest first go to YouTube and watch my relevant videos, which are in the 2019 through 2020 category of years. Then, if you're interested in that more broken down into a school, I also teach professionally as a teacher out in the real world, on several different topics, and that's what my day job is working at a school. I'm really good at breaking things down to step by step. That means I decided to open up a school online and then provide content around electroforming, how to get started, what you should do as far as tanks are concerned, and then I have two different classes, so I will provide a link below in the video on where the school is, how to get to it, and there is two different classes that you could sign up for, beginner and advanced. Someday I really picture a business one here. I am allowed 3 classes through this place, so I'm still working out what the third class is, to be honest with you. I want to make one. I'm really motivated to do it. It's just I want to make that something a little different for individuals. For right now, beginner, advanced, and if you go into any one of those classes, it'll break it down to what is in that course. So there's an introduction, what is electroforming, and then it gets into that. So if you're interested in that, link is below. Other than that, thank you for the opportunity to share what I have been passionate about. Have a good one.